Hi, welcome to the Andrew Buckle book review of the Annals of London, a year-by-year record of 1,000 years of history by John Richardson. This book came out in 2000 and it's about 407 odd pages from Cassell. It's in black and white all the way through. There's not much colour particularly. It's obviously black and white prints and things, but there is, in fact, actually there's no colour. Oh, there's a little bit of colour, sort of occasional page. Now it's quite a substantial book. You can see it's quite a large book. And it covers year by year. Now, some years get quite a bit of a mention, some years get hardly anything at all. So you've got 1836, you've got near enough a whole page. 1836, you've also got, of course, a lot of drawings, etc. No photos, of course, no reconstructions or anything like that. This one does actually look like could be a photo, is actually saying that. However, that is definitely, obviously, a print. So you've got a print there of Covent Garden. I should know, I love Covent Garden. Though, of course, there's bits of it that sort of looks-ish like that. In your mind's eye kind of thing. If you get rid of all the various shops and everything else, I'm certain you could transport yourself back to that period. However, you've got Gin Lane by, obviously, William Hogarth there. You've got Putney. I love Putney. Putney Fulham Bridge. That doesn't look particularly remotely like the Putney Fulham Bridge that I walk across. This is depicted in 1760. It was built in 1729. There it is down there. So there's a lot of that, but also, of course, there's all the various information. And I love these sort of things. It's really great, the making of the Serpentine, Church for Limehouse, a new church by Thomas Archer, New Hawksmoor Church, and so on and so on. So there's lots of great references to all the various events. And it says here about both new churches survive. St George's a very restricted site, etc., etc. Gives a lot of details about the costs and all those sort of things. You've got Flight of the King, obviously, there, the James the Second there, Frost Fair on the Thames. You've even got a lovely, I love these sort of old prints. I love books like this with showing all those. I can look at those for hours. You can just study them and think, wow, seeing all the buildings in the distance as well. And just like think. Now, of course, some of them you think, were they real or did they just make those buildings up? It's always a tricky one. But just let's have a look. There's another one there. Oh, this one's a good Temple Bar. So you've got lovely, these sort of things. Look at that, just beautiful. However, I love all the various talk about here. Physic gardens and new schools, Navy office burnt down, rebuilding of St Paul's, the Theatre Royal burns down. This is Drury Lane. Quite amazing when you go down Drury Lane now. Talk Drury Lane's, you just hard to imagine it sort of the way that sort of with the theatres. There's a few theatres still there, but it's certainly not that many. There's a lot of shops and various places. So it's got obviously that reference to Drury Lane. You've got Pall Mall. You've got Vauxhall Gardens opened. You've got the Fifth Monarchy men, who they are, and the Lincoln Inn Chapel built, and so on and so on. Just great references. And a lot of, now some, like say 1620, you get hardly a mention at all. 1620, obviously clearly not much happened in 1620. But for me, of course, 1623, actually no mention, of course, Shakespeare, the first folio. So you got that, and you got, I wonder if actually Shakespeare, I can't remember seeing Shakespeare. I'm certain Shakespeare must get a mention here somewhere. Early golf clubs, you've got Banqueting House, Holland House built, Northumberland, Rose Theatre, obviously Rose Theatre. I love the Rose Theatre. It's the Rose Theatre, you can actually go, and it's sort of very, obviously, very small. But however, it's still worth those sort of things. It's very close to the globe, and it's fascinating to go and see those sort of places. Well, we've got here Stuart Cummins, obviously James I at that point. You've got obviously the Gunpowder Plot and 1540s, 1528, Great Hall of York Place. Obviously that was Wolsey, Thomas Wolsey, and obviously King Henry VIII, and all those sort of things. Just so many references, and Gatehouse in Clerkenwell. I know, quite amazing. Is that still there? There is definitely a gate. I think it's still there, the gatehouse. However, I'm not certain it's probably in the same sort of condition as it was there. You've got here various, obviously Greenwich. You've got here St John's Priory at Clerkenwell again. Clerkenwell gets a lot of mentions here. The Savoy, slightly different to Savoy than there's a bit of picture of the Savoy there. Wow. Now, this was obviously 1246, the beginnings of the Savoy. This was obviously, the drawing was actually in 1736, and so on and so on. So it's just great references all the way. I love these things. You can literally dip into this book just over and over again. It's ones I just love. You sort of put it inside your bed and just pick it up and just read for about half an hour, and you can just, just wow. Introduction of Pianoforte, the Anatomy Theatre of Dr. Hunter, Unrest in the Capital, the Spitalfields, the Wilkes Affair continued, Blackfriars Bridge, loved Blackfriars Bridge, got a lovely. Also got the Royal Academy Summer Exhibition, which are always fascinating to go to. Though I must admit, I would love to see the Royal Academy Summer Exhibition like that. Look at that, just every painting piled on top of each other. Personally, that's how they should be done now. I would cram every single one in very, very tight with the briefest of mentions of who it's obviously by. And wow, that would be something. That would be an impressive Royal Academy exhibition. Funeral of Nelson, and so on and so on. There's just so many. Also, Hampstead Tube opened. Okay, sometimes some of the things mentioned, you think, why is that more important than other things? Because I was looking here at some of the ones in the 1960s. The 1960s, there's obviously the famous Post Office Tower. I love that building. Always walk past that. Just brilliant Post Office Tower there. But you've got like bits of churches, expanding libraries, etc. The famous clocks and music in Brentford. You've got the changes at the Old Vic. And, well, the weird thing is, there's no mention of a certain music band that you would think that was quite reasonably famous in the 60s. No mention of the Beatles at all. And then going to a bit later in the 70s, no mention of Dark They Were and Golden Night or Forbidden Planet or any of those sorts of things. Places of mega importance to comic book fans, which I think should be definitely included in here. And gosh, why isn't Gosh Comic Shop mentioned? Those sort of things that you think, why isn't that mentioned? However, I guess there's always going to be some things that if you did a book of the Annals of London that was obviously comics or something, or bookshops or something else, then of course it would have a different approach to it. However, I thoroughly enjoy these sort of books. I love these. Would I say that it's sort of one you could read all the way through? You might do. I mean, I certainly couldn't do that. It's one that I love to dip into and just enjoy it, occasional couple of pages, and then put it down again. But lovely book, definitely worth checking out. The Annals of London, and there's similar sort of books as well. Lots of brilliant books. London, obviously, Peter Ackroyd's brilliant London book. I love that one. One of my favourite books of London. But this is pretty up there. It's a real good book. Actually, I just got a book of Rome, which is not like this. Now that would be really good. But it's Rome from 300 AD to whatever, and all the medieval period. And that's just fascinating. But I love those sort of books of cities. Always fascinating, especially cities that I love to go and visit. So obviously London, one of the places I just visit all the time. Worked up in London, lived up in London, love London, going there, all my friends. So, yeah. However, I'm not living in London now. I miss it sometimes, I must admit. However, totally recommend your book.